So the app that we're making today is a desktop clock, and it's a little bit of an extension on the work that we did on stacks in the previous lesson. Things that we'll be looking for today is the modularization of code, which essentially means breaking it up into smaller parts and putting them into separate files, and also using our stacks in a more advanced way by having multiple stacks inside of each other to get a design that we are trying to create. With that in mind, the design is this here, where we've got the clock on the top right with the current period and time remaining in that period, followed by the timetable for today. So to start with, I always like bringing down my squiggly brackets because I like my brackets to line up so I can clearly see where things start and end. The content view is the entirety of the view that displays on the screen, and the body is the actual objects that are displayed. In this case, text hello world is displayed on the screen. Above the body is what I call the brain of the application. So here we'll be putting information in so that the code will run more effectively, or it might be where I'm storing information, so if someone types in something, it stores it in that area. So to start with, looking at our design, we need our background picture. I'm just going to throw that into my assets because that's where we store our pictures and files and things like that. Plus sign, import. Now I've already got this sitting inside my downloads, and there's my image. I've given it a name of background. That's important. We really need to make sure it's got a name that's easy to write and easy to remember and relevant. It can be any name whatsoever, but it needs to be easy to type and remember for later on when we actually use this image. Next, we're going to break down this app into its parts. So again, looking at the design, I've got this top section and I've got a bottom section. And I'm going to code them completely separately into separate views. So I need to go to File, New, File, and I want a Swift UI view. Now there's no real difference between a Swift UI view and a Swift file. The only real key difference is it gives you the template of what a view is. So all the code that involves in making a view is given to you to start with. Next. And this one I'm going to call clock view because it's going to be the top right hand clock and it's going to be a view. So I'll call it clock view. Again, your naming conventions are up to you. I just quite like calling it all my views with view on the end. So I'm going to bring down my squiggly brackets as I always do. And I'm going to remove hello world. So looking at this, I've got three text views on top of each other, stacked vertically. So I need a V stack. I'll start with text 1023, text period 2, and text 1860, well, not 60, 54, that'll do. So when I resume that, we should have three pieces of text on top of each other in the middle of the view. There it goes. As I click on each one, the box is placed around it. A box is placed around it in blue, just indicating that's the view that is on the screen compared to the view that you've clicked on in the code. If I click on the stack, I get a box around the entire stack. So next, I want to change the font. So for each one of these, I'm going to hit enter and dot font. It's going to be a system font using the size, weight, and design information. So I'm going to hit enter here because I don't want to type that out. And the size can be 80. The weight can be dot thin. And I'm going to remove the design. I actually don't need that. I don't want that one. And there's 1023, nice and big. I'm going to copy that because I'm lazy and paste it in, changing the size to 40 for the second one. And finally, 30 for the third one. Now, as per my design, it's aligned to the right. So I need to do that on my V stack. So I want all the views inside of this V stack to align trailing, which means to the right. Leading is to the left. Now our last step is actually placing in some information into the brain of the app, or brain of the view, I should say. So above the body, but still inside my squiggly bracket, I'm going to place a constant. Let color be a color. So I don't want to equal a color. I want to be a color, because at some stage I'm going to ask for a clock view, and when I ask for that clock view, I want it to also ask for what color do you want the clock to be. So down here you can see it's actually already asked for a color when you're calling this view. That's because this is the preview. So the preview is this here. And in that preview, I'm calling clock view, and it's saying, well, I need a color. So I'm just going to use the fix. Very rarely does this work, but we're going to use the fix this time. You can see the clock view is asking for a color, and it's looking for type color. So I can just put in dot black, and it'll stay as it is. Or I can go dot purple, and I'll resume, and I'll have a purple clock. Now this is independent of when we use it inside our main app. So the next time we ask for a clock, it'll actually place it in there and asking for another color, which won't necessarily be purple. But for this to work, obviously I need to use foreground color on my V stack. And I'm going to say whatever color is typed into color down the bottom here will be placed inside of here. So every time we call this clock view and say, I would like a clock view, I would like the color to be purple, that color will go into here. Now, actually what you'll notice is you can see color, the type, matches the color type here. So that's a color that's asking for a color. I can put it into here. The reason why it's got a U in it is because I want to call it with the Australian spelling of color, whereas this is the American spelling of color. You see now it's a purple clock. If I change this, I can make it a pink clock, or whatever color I choose. So that view is now done. Moving on to our second section, which is this view down the bottom here, our timetable. File, new, file, switch drive view, timetable view. Note there are no spaces here, and it's a capital T and a capital V for view. So usually when we make a variable name, it'll be a lowercase first letter and then uppercase letter for each word after it. But because this is a struct or a class, it's an object, we use a capital T to start. So there's my timetable view. And again, enter to bring it down, enter to bring it down, say line up, and I look like I got a V stack. Oops. V stack, squiggly brackets, text, Friday, week 3A. Hopefully get this thing done soon before my battery runs out. Friday, week 3A, text, home group, copy, paste, 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 paste. Done. I'll even throw in a rectangle. So this rectangle is, as you expect, a rectangle. However, I'm going to do a frame with a width of 150 and a height of 1. So this should actually look like a straight line. Now I may get an error here. I believe I will. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I might have just got snuck under it. You're only allowed to have 10 views inside a single stack. But we got exactly 10, so we're okay. Again, I need to work on my alignment here because everything defaults to the middle. So alignment dot leading, so it's on the left. I'm going to change the font, but I'm going to change the font to all of this to be the same font. So I don't need to do each individual text view and change its font. I can just do .font.system. Again, use my helper. I'm going to say it's going to be 20. No weight this time. I don't really care about the weight, but I will do a design of monospaced. So they're all the exact same width. Every character from I to Y will be the same width. I'll just make this a little bit bigger so it lines up. 200. There we go. Alrighty. Lastly, let color be a color. Now you don't have to do a color. I've just chosen to do one because I feel this design is going to need it. Foreground color, color. Again, I could choose just to have individual views with that foreground color, but actually I want all of it to be that color. And again, I'll do my little fix, and I can do a .blue timetable if I wanted to. There's my blue timetable. So I've got my two views done. That's great. Off to my content view. So this view here has an image in the back and then two views on top of each other. So for that, I need a Z stack. So that way I can place my image background in behind. And that plonks in straight away. Obviously not the right size for us, so we're going to make it resizable. We're going to make the aspect ratio with a content mode of fill, and that now fits nicely. I am aware though, you may have chosen an image that has a different size, and due to that it might make the screen wider than it needs to be. So I'm going to add in some little bit of fancy code here. Let screen equal UI screen.main.bounds. This is the dimensions of that screen there. So now I can use .frame with a width of screen.width and a height of screen.height. So that fits exactly to the size of the screen. And then finally, you can see this little gap at the top. That's allowing space into what we call the safe area. So on an iPhone, you've got the time at the top and maybe the Wi-Fi signal and so forth. Well, we'd like to actually ignore that safe area and just place our image up there anyway. We're not going to tap up there, but we actually just want the image to fit up there. So I'm going to choose ignore safe areas. And now that fits all the way to the top. But our Z stack actually is still inside that area there within the safe area, but the image has gone above. That's perfect. Next, I'm going to throw in a V stack. Now I've got a V stack because this view and this view are on top of each other. So I'll call my clock view, open brackets, and you can see it's asking for a color. I'll give it .gray. And there's my clock in gray, automatically placed in. Then I'm going to put my timetable view with a color of .white. That will now go under it. I might flip them around actually. I'll go gray for the timetable and white for the clock. That flips them around, that's fine. And I'd like to fill in the space between these two views. I want to push this to the top and this to the bottom, and I want them to be separated, so fill in the space. Spacer, 2 round brackets. And there it goes there, pushing them to the top and the bottom. Now I'd also like this view to be pushed to the right. So that same principle of a spacer can be applied. However, this time I need to put in a H stack, a horizontal stack. Put my clock view in, and now put a spacer before it. So it pushes the space inside of here, fills in that space horizontally because I'm in a H stack. Whereas this one filled in the space vertically because it's inside the V stack. Do the same for this one here. and spacer. Done. So that's now right on the edge and right on the edge because of the spacer. It's gone away from that safe area as well, which is not ideal. So I'm just going to throw in on my V stack. You can see the V stack because of the squiggly brackets lining up. Dot padding. Now we'll put some padding around the entire V stack, pushing all this into the middle. Job done. So the only thing that we really want to change here as we finish is actually to go back into our clock view. And this is the benefit of having these views broken up into separate little sections. In my clock view, I'm actually going to change this 1023 to be date, 2 round brackets. That's the current date and time along with a lot of other properties. Style.time. And that'll actually get the exact time as of now. It won't update live, but it will place it on the screen for us when it first loads, and at least we have at least a somewhat relevant time to what our design has been for. It'll give us an idea. And again, when this rebuilds, there it goes there, 8:12 a.m. I might go back to my content view and just change this to 60. That looks better. Back in my content view to see my final product. That's all come down nicely. Everything looks exactly how I'd like it, and my app is done. So this was a prototype user interface. We still have to work on our back end of our app, our model, to get the data that we want to place in here so it's actually live, useful data, not just temporary data we've thrown in there.